What's going on, everyone? So now that we're getting into free agency, I wanted to kind of just have a conversation, of course, hear your thoughts and opinions on, what would be the best kind of center pairing for the Lakers? Clear-cut starter, backup, not trade, but free agency, right? Obviously, Walker Kessler and Daniel Gafford might be the best, but I'm saying, free agents that we know of, right? It's very possible that several become available. It's very possible that we get word that the Lakers are, expected to sign one or whatever, that, they've worked out a deal like Ayton, for example, right? A lot of talks about them Lakers being the favorites to sign him, most likely are going to sign him, which I do think is a real possibility. So keep that in mind when, this video, right, is recorded before we have that information, if that information even comes out today, right? Because a guy like Ayton won't clear waivers until Wednesday, so we might not get word about it till Wednesday, but just kind of to go over that stuff. But I talk about how I want kind of the various combinations of centers, right? Now, obviously, the easy answer is whichever two the Lakers can get, right? Like, to go from no center to like, hey, here's two, even if it was a Brook Lopez and a Jericho Sims, right? Like, it's like, that's probably not the best out of the pool, but it's better than nothing, right? But starting with Ayton, right? Because that seems to be, at least the time recording this video, most likely the clear-cut starting center. So what Ayton does is he gives you, yes, that floor running lob threat. Talk about a guy that's a 43-inch vert, right? So he gives you the lob threat. Top of that, gives you a skilled big, right? Because he can, pick and pop. He can kind of score around the rim. He's a guy that can create for himself and doesn't really need the ball and whatnot, right? So gives you that skilled big, right? I then would look to add, personally, kind of more of like that bruiser, rebounder type of center. And so, like, I think something like Day'Ron Sharpe. Like, my favorite pairing would be Ayton and Day'Ron out of all the different possible combinations. Get me Ayton, get me Day'Ron. Both guys are young. Both guys can be your starter in a pinch. Both guys can do multiple things out there on the basketball court. Day'Ron gives you kind of that bull in the china shop type guy that can just come in and just bang with the big boys, 265, right? Got the wingspan. He's not really a true 7-footer, but in a backup, I think you'd be great. He can protect the rim, block shots, do all that stuff. You could even maybe play the two of them together on occasion at times because Ayton can kind of operate in the mid-range. Not really a guy you want taking heavy threes. Not really a great three-point shooter. He has shown the ability to stretch the floor. Same thing with Day'Ron, but two guys that I wouldn't want taking a handful of threes a game. But kind of that versatility I do think would be very helpful. But beyond that, kind of, again, like a Clint Capella, I would still love to get a Clint Capella. Excellent offensive rebounder, guy that can block shots, be an interior presence, right? Bang with the big boys and defend. I want these like different waves of centers. You look at the 2020 roster, right? It was like Anthony Davis as your skill big, Dwight Howard as your enforcing big, big, physical, strong, not afraid to get a little rough, get a little physical, pick up the tech, pick up the flagrant. Perfect. Nothing dirty, just a hard foul, right? And then you had JaVale McGee, who was the high flyer floor running big. So I would love it, like Ayton as your skilled big, a Clint Capella, or again, ideally a Day'Ron Sharpe as like your just kind of bull in the paint, banding with the big boys, helping you rebound, all that stuff. Even Clint Capella is still one of the best offensive rebounders in all of basketball. And then, can you bring in a Jackson Hayes or a Christian Koloko as like your floor runner that's just kind of your sprinting big? Jackson Hayes would actually be the perfect ideal for that because he is such a good athlete and can kind of sprint up and down the court. It just gives you kind of different looks, especially as you see the Lakers kind of carving out this athletic core now. You're seeing them get a bunch of young athletic wings. I imagine that they're probably going to add some more in free agency because you want that alongside Luka. Long, athletic, versatile kind of wings that can defend multiple positions, kind of take the pressure off of him, recover easier, switch, all of that. Right? So having a guy in like a Jackson Hayes that could kind of run the floor with those young wings and just sprint, and you could just kind of push the pace and adapt your game, I think would be fantastic. But then outside of that, it's like, okay, what other skilled bigs are there? Right? Like, Brook Lopez is a guy that comes to mind. I don't really like the idea of Brook Lopez as your starter, though, is the problem. So, like, let's remove Ayton from the table, right? The reason I wouldn't want Ayton and Brook Lopez, again, whatever you can get is what you can get. But the reason I wouldn't want Ayton and Brook Lopez is, again, it kind of gives you too similar of a thing. Yes, Brook Lopez can give you the floor spacing, but he's not a great rebounder, right? He can protect the rim, but I just think at that point you might as well just keep Maxi Kleber, right? And just, he can be your floor spacing big, like if that's really what you want. Where Ayton, I think, he doesn't spread the floor to the 3-point line. He spreads the floor enough to where he can, get out of the paint so LeBron can drive to the basket and stuff. So I wouldn't really want like an Ayton and Brook Lopez pairing, but if you weren't to get an Ayton and you were to get like a Day'Ron Sharpe and a Brook Lopez, then I'd be fine, right? Got that bruiser, interior, excellent rebounder, all that stuff, and then you got that backup, a Luke Cornett, and like if you can't get, most of my like go get are Day'Ron Sharpe personally, which is why, again, I want to hear kind of your combinations. But Day'Ron Sharpe and then like a Luke Cornett, I would love to have that, again, that those different pairings. That's what I look for if I'm the Lakers. If I'm Rob Pelinka, I'm looking, obviously you want to get that first one, right? And let's say it is a Clint Capella. Well, then now I'm pushing harder for a Brook Lopez, or I'm pushing harder for a Ayton if you can get him, right? Because again, you want those different combinations. Like Brook Lopez is a very different type of center. He's closer to a LeBron type center than a Clint Capella is. Clint Capella is more of a Luka center, right? Which is why I've talked about if you were to get those two, I think it would work, because when LeBron's on the court, you could have Brook Lopez. When Luka's on the court, you could have Clint Capella, and you can kind of alternate those two, because that way LeBron, when he's operating as the primary guy and he's being aggressive, looking to score the basketball, you can have Brook Lopez to spread the floor, clear it out, because he likes to put his head down, get to the basket, right, and then kick out to shooters, where Luka likes the traffic. He likes to get into the teeth of the defense, kind of create that dribble penetration, and then find that outlet, that lob threat. So those kind of combinations. So basically for me, I just, like, whatever the first guy is for the Lakers. Again, if it's Ayton, get a Day'Ron, get a Clint Capella, get, guys like that. I wouldn't hate like a Cornett, right? Cornett's another guy that I'd put on that list of like, hey, I still like Day'Ron, right? Because I think he's a guy that could eventually move into our starting center if we need to, or if Ayton starts to price himself out a little bit. But I think that he's a guy that could really solve that, where Cornett, I think, is probably always going to be best as a backup. Doesn't mean he can't start in a pinch and whatnot, but that's kind of my thought process, center position, right? Give me that clear cut, a guy that can kind of do multiple things, that skilled center, and then give me that bruiser off the bench. And then if you can bring in a Koloko or Jackson Hayes, just kind of your floor runner, kind of more skinny, craftier type of big man. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot, so we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.